I know. Four videos in a row talking about Spider-Man Brand New Day. I was wanting to maybe just do a side flick, talk about some other movie news, but dude, the Spider-Man stuff that's been coming out, it's gotta be its own video. Spider-Man Brand New Day is continuing to film in Glasgow, and while we're getting even more set videos, photos, looks at the suit, there are other details peeking out about this movie that make me so confused, but also very curious what is going down in this movie. So that's exactly what I'll be doing here for you guys. I'll be breaking down some of the new set videos, showing off that they're going back to practical swinging for this film, the Punisher's involvement in this movie, the weird confusion about who is the villain? What story is even happening in this movie? All of that here, along with you guys commenting down below your theories, because like I said, a lot of Spider-Man fans right now are lost on this movie, and I think that's a good thing right now. Let's speculate and have fun with everything. All right, so let's start off with some of these newer set videos of Spider-Man Brand New Day. So they're continuing to film this armored tank chase sequence where Spider-Man is going down the streets of New York trying to stop this tank that is rumored to be driven by Frank Castle, the Punisher, all while explosions and cars are getting flipped around. Now, they're going to be filming this same scene for like about 2 weeks. Well, the thing that's catching my eye the most in these sequences is that they've actually have Spider-Man hooked up to a rig and they're going back to practical web swinging. Dude, that is awesome. I know we all have our different likes and tastes when it comes to Spider-Man. I, of course, appreciate each one of them differently, but I think one of the biggest complaints Tom Holland has gotten in his Spider-Man trilogy was his web swinging. I think it's more of a case that we just barely got it in his trilogy, so we just don't have that many memorable moments or swings to think about with Tom Holland's version, but it was always something heavily criticized with his movies, because if you think of the Tobey Maguire movies, tons of instances of Tobey swinging throughout New York that just look really great. And same goes for Andrew Garfield. Some would say his web swinging was the best out of all the Spider-Man movies, and I'd honestly be in that camp a little bit too, because the Amazing Spider-Man 2 sequences of him swinging are some of the highest points of that movie. And man, I gotta tell you, looking at these behind the scenes set videos of Tom Holland swinging while explosions are happening, some of the quick shots taken by fans off the street and these videos already are making me feel like these are going to be way more memorable web swinging sequences. It feels like Spider-Man is real and he exists in some of these photos, man. But you know, looking at this practical web swinging, it's brought back up a debate amongst fans. It's just because you're doing something practically doesn't mean it's going to end up looking amazing on screen. In fact, people are bringing up a quote that director Jon Watts gave to the new Spider-Man director, Destin Daniel Cretton, where back in May of last year, Jon Watts said, "I have a very particular bit of Spider-Man advice, and I think every Spider-Man director goes through it. It doesn't look good when someone is just swinging on a rope. You think you're going in there, you're like, we're gonna do it all practical, we're gonna get a stunt man, we're gonna be swinging around. It's boring, it looks dumb, it looks like a monkey swinging on a vine when you put someone on just a rope. Don't waste your time. That's my advice to the next Spider-Man director." And well, this director has decided to completely ignore that advice and move forward with some practical web swinging. And you know what? As much as I am always willing to kind of, take a small little friendly jab at my personal friend, Jon Watts, photographic proof that we are friends, I'm actually going to play devil's advocate here and say that I think he maybe is speaking from the heart. If we go back to like the Amazing Spider-Man with the first Andrew Garfield, I remember one specific scene where it really was heavy practical web swinging, and I actually think that scene looks good. I really like it. I think it works within the movie, also because it's the first time he is web swinging in New York as he's learning his powers. But if I am also being honest with myself and I think about my favorite web swing moments between the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield movies, it's mostly when it is CGI web swinging. I mean, I'm playing for you right now some of my favorite web swing moments, and these are not practical. This is a fully CGI render, so I don't think Jon Watts is wrong in saying, don't rely on practical web swinging because it's not going to be as good looking as you think it's going to be, because I think a lot of the moments people will go to, look how peak that web swinging is, it's a fully CGI scene. Plus, I think we all also have to keep in mind this could just be for this specific scene, just having a practical web swinging scene that fits what Spider-Man is trying to do in this moment. And for a lot of the other parts of the movie, it could be a full CGI render, and maybe in those scenes it will feel a lot more memorable and true to Spider-Man. Either way though, so awesome to see this, and we'll have to wait in a year's time to see if this practical web swinging actually was worth it on screen, or maybe John Watts was just right all along. From there, let's talk about some new details that are going around about Spider-Man Brand New Day. This comes to us from Daniel RPK. He provided some details on the tone and what some of the supporting characters in the movie might end up doing. So starting off, he does let us know that Brand New Day is set to have a darker tone similar to Kraven's Last Hunt or The Amazing Spider-Man 2. A darker tone is something I'm totally hoping for with this movie, and I think it would make sense with the state that Peter Parker is in. I think a lot of Spider-Man fans were also missing that side of Spider-Man in Tom Holland, is the side of him that is a little suffering, a little bit more depressed, things that I guess make him relatable to all of us Spider-Man fans, because we all depressed. So okay, happy to hear that. Next, he gives us some details on the Punisher, saying the Punisher is still his usual murderous psychopath self, but he will have weaponry to deal with threats like Spider-Man and the Hulk. That to me is such an interesting detail, and it's really brought up so much speculation amongst the fandom. So we know the Punisher is confirmed for this movie, and Jon Bernthal is still currently filming his Punisher special that'll go to Disney Plus, where we've gotten some scenes of him fighting some people on the street, and even today we've gotten a brand new look at his new suit, where the man is looking very spiffy. That fade, ooh, looking clean, Frank Castle. I can appreciate a nice fade. But although you guys know, the Punisher is like one of my favorite Marvel characters. He's actually a character I do read comics of. I am starting to get a little worried about how he's going to be used in this movie for a couple of reasons. For one, we are getting more and more insiders and scoopers say we are not going to be seeing Mr. Negative or the Inner Demons in this movie. We thought it was like an obvious thing they were going to be integrating into this film, that Mr. Negative would be like commanding the thugs, and he could even be the thing responsible for bringing back Savage Hulk, since he has the ability to bring out these negative emotions into the people he touches. It seemed like the obvious thing to do, but we're hearing there is no Mr. Negative. There is no Inner Demons, so it's like, wait, then what is this symbol on the tank? Well, we found out this is actually Frank Castle's tank, that he is the one driving this thing. And now we're being told that he's going to have the weaponry to deal with bigger threats like Spider-Man and the Hulk, who are obviously way out of his league when this is just a dude with a bunch of guns. Are they actually gonna go with the Punisher War Machine suit storyline, or what I think is slightly worse, the storyline where the Punisher gives up his skull symbol and takes control of the hand, all in part of his agenda of getting rid of as many criminals as he can? These are Punisher storylines I'm just not a big fan of. Like, I love that everyone online actually is going crazy for the idea of Punisher rocking a War Machine suit. I totally get why some fans and even general audiences would think that's dope. Just like I am with all the superheroes I actually am a diehard fan of, I get picky with them. And so as picky as I've gotten with Spider-Man and little nitpicks I have here and there with Tom Holland's version, hearing Punisher might have the War Machine suit or be the leader of the hand, although it's happened in the comics, it's not the traditional viewpoint of how I see the Punisher. To me, he is a lone gun. He is an army in himself. I know people laughed whenever they're like, Punisher's going up against the Hulk, but the Punisher I've read would have a strategic way in going up against him. He's not thinking he's about to punch out the Hulk. He has some sort of plan in mind, and seeing that plan unfold and the mind of Frank Castle being able to execute that, I think is the fun of the character. These are just Punisher storylines I am not the biggest fan of, and I'm starting to think we are maybe headed that way. This symbol that we were seeing on Frank Castle's tank might not even be an Inner Demon symbol, but instead is his new Punisher symbol, since the MCU has now started playing into the story that cops and other people are using using Frank Castle's symbol for their own agendas, and that was also the real-life inspiration for why Marvel Comics wanted to change the Punisher symbol. I don't see how we have the time to go through that storyline unless the Punisher special is going to do that much amount of heavy lifting to get us to that point in this movie, which would also be the thing I think Kevin Feige has been wanting to stay away from, is to not have too much interconnectivity or dependence on the Disney Plus stuff leading into the movies. It leaves me so curious, and there's even more evidence kind of backing up this hand involvement or this army of like samurai ninjas, which I'll bring up later in this video. But kind of just finishing off this Punisher stuff, so many questions. You know, I know I'm complaining, I'm nitpicking, I'm wondering, but I'm actually having fun. I know I can also hate an idea on paper, but when it's done in the movie, it could be so much better. I've said it before, whenever the details of No Way Home were leaking that Spider-Man was going to be responsible for having the Sinister Six out in New York and that he was going to be trying to cure the villains of their powers, I thought that sounded like the dumbest plot point, and in the movie, it actually ended up working out fine. So we'll see how the Punisher is involved, and I just want to know, like, what's his beef with the Hulk? I get that the Hulk has done bad stuff before, but I feel like the Hulk has maybe redeemed himself enough, especially when saving the entire universe. What specific beef does the Punisher have with the Hulk? And what weapon does he possibly have that he thinks he can take on the Hulk? Because that War Machine outfit ain't gonna do much. That tank he has ain't gonna last long. The Punisher must have some sort of serum or have gotten outside help. Like, there's no way he just thinks, I'm punching that green guy. So we'll have to wait and see how the Punisher ends up getting used. But going back to the other details being let know, Daniel RPK also said Scorpion will have a prominent role, but is not the main villain. This is another fascinating update that we've gotten. And in what feels like flashbacks to the Spider-Man No Way Home era, Michael Mando, the actor who portrays Scorpion, decided to take to his Instagram to tease his version of the character, where at first we were just getting little photos of comic book Scorpion, even an action figure maybe teasing what the costume could end up looking like in this movie. But the real kicker was a photo of Scorpion behind Venom, but not just any version of Venom, the Mac Gargan version, aka the Scorpion version of Venom. This is like going back to when Jamie Foxx finally got announced as Electro, and the first thing he did is went to his story and revealed 3 Spider-Men looking over New York City, basically being our first hint that Spider-Man No Way Home was gonna involve the Spider Bros. And that's another thing I want to remind you of. Sony is fully aware of this marketing tactic, and there is a reason they're now okay filming in public and things like this are being let out. Sony sees the value in the fan hype, in the fan leaking game. It felt like Spider-Man No Way Home was almost entirely spoiled by the time we saw that movie, and is still cracked $2 billion in a pandemic. I think maybe having Scorpion be kind of like a lingering villain that could show up in the next film, but this time as Venom and be the Venom for the MCU Spider-Man, is a storyline I would not mind. I think Eddie Brock's version of Venom has been done enough. I mean, we got him in the Sam Raimi movie. We got a whole trilogy with Tom Hardy as that Eddie Brock. And it feels like when the MCU is adapting villains, they really don't want to do characters that have been done before. They'd rather give Spider-Man new people. But Sony at the same time knows the absolute crazy value of Spider-Man versus Venom. Heck, they teased it and never delivered on that promise. I think the way they've set up this version of Scorpion is perfect to become our Venom. So I think in Spider-Man Brand New Day, like it says here, Scorpion will be a big part of the movie, but he's not going to be looked at as the main villain. He's either hired and working alongside Tombstone or somebody else. Maybe he just has his own agenda, but by the end of this movie, he will get arrested or he will be stopped. And I think without the Scorpion outfit, he is probably going to be paralyzed or not as capable. If you go back to that post-credit scene with Scorpion, a lot of people always miss the fact that his entire arm is basically broken and busted. It has a full-on cast with a bunch of wires and metal parts attached to it. I'm thinking that's going to be permanent damage for this version of Scorpion, and it's going to be the thing that fuels a lot of his hatred and need to want to get to Spider-Man, which that in itself perfect, because we no longer have a villain starting off hating Tony Stark or somebody else. This is a guy who just hates Spider-Man from the beginning. Once he gets defeated and that Scorpion costume isn't there to let him be mobile or use his arm, what is the next thing that can give him back that feeling in his arm, that sense of power that isn't mechanical? The symbiote. That would be an awesome way to do that storyline, and I actually believe that this guy would want nothing more than to kill Spider-Man. That doesn't involve getting him fired from his job or stealing his girlfriend, so he asks God to do it.
I want you to kill Peter Parker.
I don't know. I feel like they could actually cook here, and I would like to see Scorpion kind of be like the returning villain and eventually become Venom. Bringing me now to another Pinterest leak. You guys might have seen a couple weeks back, we had a Pinterest leak from one of the principal photographers for this movie, where his public Pinterest showed a lot of imagery they were trying to emulate in Spider-Man Brand New Day that actually revealed the Hulk, and then that ended up getting confirmed, along with a bunch of other interesting looks at the movie of what we could see visually. Well, today we got a new Pinterest leak from Monica Avito, who is the costume designer for Spider-Man Brand New Day, where she has a whole board just titled Spider-Man, and when you sift through it, it is nothing but samurai-inspired clothing. This is something that was rumored and said months back, that there would be this sort of samurai figure or samurai army in the movie, and a lot of us took that to think that it would be part of Mr. Negative's group of thugs and people that he was running with the inner demons. But now we're being told, no Mr. Negative, no inner demons. So who are these samurai beings? Like I said, some theorize it could be the Punisher leading the Hand, and that these could be the costumes for the people who are working under the Punisher. Others have speculated that Spider-Man will be bringing in the Silver Samurai that we once saw in the Wolverine movie. I don't know if I would love that. I am curious. Who are these people and their involvement? I'm trying to piece things together, but even with me having like those ideas in my mind, where does Punisher come in? Where does the Hulk come in? Where does Scorpion come in? Tombstone, Tarantula, Boomerang, like, I feel like there's a lot going on in this movie, and we are just so lost to what is actually happening. So that is the fun of all this. So this is kind of the details that we've gotten, some of the ideas. I toss it off now to you guys to make with it with what you will. If you do decide to leave a theory in the comments, just write theory, and heck, maybe I'll read them during this week's live stream. Anything and everything, be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.